Good evening. So I'll
And
give it
it's not the right time to cook with solar cooker, so
right. This is true. Definitely not here. We're at 8 o'clock. It's the sun set 3-4 hours ago. So, but nevertheless,
So,
uh,
excuse me, I was able now to unmute myself, and
yeah,
I'm Margarita Battle. I'm just using my husband's iPad, so that's why you see his name there. But I'm the participant here from She. So
oh,
it has
great,
yeah.
great. Yeah, thanks for logging in. Um, I think we will go ahead with the questions. It should be pretty quick, but being able to get your thoughts recorded too, and then I could just compile them all into one recording for both sessions. That way, everyone will get everything in one. They won't have to switch back and forth on my YouTube channel. Um, so great. Well, for I think Margarita, you're probably the only one I don't think we've ever met online yet.
Yes,
Um,
thank you.
yeah. Well, we'll do introductions then, and I'll just start. Luther Kruger here. I'm in Minnesota, 45 degrees north on the latitude, and about 5 degrees below zero on the Fahrenheit temperature scale. We're hitting a pretty bad cold snap right now,
All
but
right.
yeah, the furnace is working though. And Patrick knows me. Patrick Sherwin's on traveling, so probably not going to turn on his camera. That's okay. We want him to get where he's going safely. And Moses logged in on Saturday. But to wrap up my brief bio, I've been doing videos with people who are doing the real serious solar cooking work, promoting it, designing cookers, being power users and sharing their tips, promoting in their own area or abroad. And I've been collecting solar cookers for 20 years. So I've got just about every one that I can find has existed, except for about a dozen. I've got about 90 in my collection. I need to get about a dozen more that I can't find anyone that has ones that were produced. So I'm going to keep hunting for them. But in my time checking in with people who have built solar cookers, designed them, I've learned a lot about not just the ones that work, but also who is really putting their boots on the ground where they are most needed, and learning what a challenge it is to promote solar cooking. I'm actually going to be presenting to a local Rotary Club on Thursday. And I find I think someone in a Saturday meeting put it this way. He said, if you can afford a solar cooker, you're probably not lacking for a source of regular fuel. Whereas if you have to use wood or charcoal or whatever, you might not be able to afford the solar cooker. So we're trying to find that sweet spot where the cooker is affordable and powerful and useful in most circumstances. And from all the people I've talked to, I'm very hopeful that there are already models out there that do the job. Patrick's probably aware with the GoSun model with vacuum tubes in England. That's their go-to cooker to using vacuum tubes because of their frequent fog and overcast skies. They find it will still cook even as long as you can make out where the sun is kind of behind the clouds. They can still use the vacuum tubes.
Wow.
So there's a cooker for just about every area of the world, that's for sure. But anyway, and so my big projects right now, I'm still doing my YouTube channel, still interviewing people mostly by Zoom right now. But in May, I will be attending the Console Foods Conference in Marseille, France. And I'm going to bring a bunch of cameras with the batteries all charged up because there'll be about 5 or 6 people I want to add to my channel and get their stories told. Um, and if you're not aware of it, Marseille Le Presage Restaurant, solar thermal cooking restaurant with, I think they have a
Can
bio backup. Yes,
can you repeat the name in Marseille?
sure. The restaurant is Le Presage, and it's LE, and then next word capital PRESAGE, It's just like the English word presage,
Yeah.
presaged and an omen. And for him, for Pierre Andre Aubert, who set up the restaurant, he said it's a good omen. It's an omen for the future using the renewable energy of the sun. Anyway, so I'll leave it at that, and then we'll go. I'll turn it over to, since Moses was here. Moses, if you'd like to introduce yourself to Margarita and Patrick.
Yeah, of course. So I am Moses Bass from the Gambia, but currently I'm on the Florida Panhandle. I I met Luther during the 2023 Council Food Conference in A Coruña, Spain. And to be honest, that was the first time I was really deeply introduced in what solar cooking is. And ever since I've built interest. So during my time in Spain, I was actually trying to study the aspects of energy transition, focusing on the Gambia. But eventually, I was not only focusing on only electricity, but the overall energy transition, which includes cooking, because everybody is talking about electrification, but still millions of people, especially in Africa, are still not having clean sources of cooking. So, and I thought to myself, we can't talk about a real energy transition if we ignore the cooking aspect of it. So recently I am trying to volunteer with Solar Household Energy and try to get involved in their work so that I can see how I can positively contribute in that area. So I'm here trying to constantly learn and also see how solar cooking can be advanced, especially in most African countries.
Sounds good. Thanks. Well,
Well,
yeah, go ahead, Margarita.
well, hi, and I'm really pleased to meet you and see you for the first time. I've been working with She for 15 years, and we've been trying to develop solar cooking in Mexico. And first, we had different models that we have used, some that were developed here in Mexico. But when we met Roger Haynes and with his wonderful Sun Up, and then now the Pop Open and incredibly powerful cookers, we have been successful in developing this. But what you said, Luther, about people who can afford a cooker, have enough money to buy gas, and people who can't afford it can't afford the cooker either. So we've been relying on donations from Rotary and other sources, mostly from Rotary. And She also does fundraising, and they have helped us with a few projects. But right now, we're really excited. We have created a wonderful team with the Food Bank and Caritas organization and the Rotary and us from She. And we have an expert trainer and passionate about solar cooker in the Oaxaca region of Mexico, who has also been in solar cooking for more than 20 years. And we're really excited about just really scaling up our project with this team. And so I'm really excited about your having a museum of solar cooking. I think that's an amazing contribution. And so we're here working as much as we can.
Great. And I try to say it whenever anyone talks about panel cookers. When I started collecting, I had a real bias against panel cookers because I'd look at them and I'd say, I just can't believe that they can cook. And then I got the hot pot. I got the hot pot. And I
Yes.
said, okay, I'll give it a chance. I put some beef stew in there at about 10 in the morning, had it pointed kind of toward noon, and then maybe adjusted it once or twice. Supper time, that beef was so tender and tasty. I mean, it was the best we've ever had. And I heard so many people in my interviews talk about how, you know, I don't, I might be kidding myself, they'd say, but food tastes better when it's cooked with sunlight. And
Well,
Rogers, yeah,
yeah.
go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, if the hot pot was good, the Hain solar cooker, the pop open, is like 30% more efficient. It's incredible. It's really, I was telling myself, if people can cook a kilo of beans, then they will take it. And if they can do the dough, cooking the corn to make the tortillas, then because they use so much wood and it's just so toxic. And so if they can do it in the solar cooker, this is the one where I'm really gonna work on it. And this Hain solar cooker can cook the corn for the tortillas and can cook the beans, 1 kilo of beans in 4, 5, 6 hours, through the day, and they're just so soft. So
Yes.
yeah, you're right. It was just increasing the size of the reflector by about 6 inches, and the size of it really gets it. It's not a Scheffler, but it's a little bit bigger than the hot pot, and it
Yeah.
really works.
Well, great. Okay. Well, and Patrick, introduce yourself.
Yeah, thanks again for pulling this off, Luther. My name's Patrick Sherwin, and I run a company called GoSun. Our whole mission is to build solar-powered appliances to further recreation and resilience. Most of our customer base is currently in the United States and other kind of developed world environments, and that is not necessarily by design. Our goal when we first launched the company over a decade ago was to do as much as possible in developing countries, where we thought that the technology we were developing was going to be needed the most. We've done some really cool pilots. We've done a number of different exercises in Latin America and Sub-Saharan Africa and the Caribbean, dabbled a little bit in the Far East, but most of those efforts have not succeeded for a variety of reasons, mainly just not enough of an investment over a long enough time period to really build out a champion to take it on and run with it. And I regret that that's our reality. So, most of my focus continues to remain in building the business for domestic purposes. We have moved well beyond solar cooking into all kinds of other solar appliances and apparatus, including my past was in solar electric and electric vehicles. But I still believe that solar cooking tech should really proliferate, and I'm very committed to that cause. And and I think, but kind of backing up to the exercise that's happening in Marseille and France with Le Pressage is, I think that there's a unique opportunity to kind of set an example. This is something I've been wanting to do in Mexico, where where you could have, say, for example, just a simple like a hot dog stand that was running on solar, and it's only running for lunch, the lunch rush. Let's say it's just open between the hours of 10 a.m. and 5 p.m. And um, you can have cold drinks with some of our cooling technology. You could have, several different dishes, uh, but uh, but you always have a consistent low cost meal that's cooked in the sun that's really demonstrating the viability of this technology. And then from that cultural, what I might call beachhead, from that demonstration where you're winning over customers and creating believers with the technology, then there's a possibility for the consumer surge to come following the restaurant. So
Mhm.
that's kind of a big dream of mine, and I wanted to share that here. And again, as Luther mentioned, most of what I produce are vacuum tube ovens, so they're
Mhm.
kind of, you might call them like high performance in the space. Not
Mhm.
doesn't mean that they're better or faster. They're just kind of, they're very capable and very reliable as a solar oven, and they have a tendency to work through a much wider range of weather conditions, including like freezing cold or partly cloudy. And
Mhm.
then another interesting aspect, and I'll stop talking, is that we back all our stoves up with electricity. So since you're cooking inside vacuum tube, they're super efficient, and we only need to burn about 1/10 the electricity of a traditional electric stove or cooktop.
Mm.
And that's one thing I've really appreciated about what you've put together there, Patrick, because as you've heard David Chalker probably say at a few of these, he thinks just about every cooker that is out there that's solar thermal could have a hybrid feature, be able to use an alternative fuel, and ideally, what you've done with that heating element in your cooking tray, being able to, if the clouds do come in too thick to generate heat, plug it into a battery, plug it into the solar panel. And I think the crossover there is nice, especially now where, of course, PV gets all the press. But we said, let's try the next step, which is okay, you've gotten the cookers into people's hands. And the question then is, why is it a lot of promoters will say they might get 100 cookers somewhere and only 4 or 5 people are still using them 6 months later, a year later? Solar household energy is the exception, is a standout. Solar Oven Partners is another one where you have done the homework and have the local folks uh, be the leaders in making sure the promotion is happening, and just guaranteed to be success, have a higher success rate. Solar cookers, as you have focused on making sure you have local leaders doing it, that's the ticket. I'm surprised at how few companies are willing to go that far. I think part of it is, I remember one guy saying in the city of Minneapolis, he says, there's nothing worth doing that doesn't take work. You can't just, do something for a few hours and then hope things will happen. No, you got to keep at it, and that's what you guys are doing. But the question is, and you have probably run into this, even with being very successful. What, for instance, in the 3 questions I sent out, what are the cultural barriers? To be the first one. The second one I asked, and this one I hear from a lot, where they're seeing the oil companies, they're promoting, trying to get people kind of hooked on LP, and that's a real challenge, because if they can make it look like it's financially feasible, some people might get stuck with that. And then locally, how do you use local advocates to get things done? So I guess I'll start with Margarita, since you described some of that already. But starting with cultural barriers, what are you encountering that is keeping people from using the cookers that you brought to them and educated them on? What's in the way?
Well, the people that we give, we sell the cookers so that there will be something that the users will have to give, but it is, 10% of the value of the cooker. And what we find is that we think we're teaching them how to use it, but the cultural barriers are the habits that they have for many generations, cooking with wood. They have, for example, organized their time in going to collect the wood in the forest, which we're trying to tell them not to do. Or they go to, in the evening, they have the hearth boiling, and that's part of their social sitting around. And then also there's beliefs that maybe because the sun can give you cancer, then food cooked by the sun can give you cancer. And the next thing is that they don't really have the mind set on what you're explaining to them. The workshop that we do is very good, but then if we come back in a week, they forgot how to put it together, or they use the pot in a gas stove and they ruined it, or an animal came, and the obstacles are in the habit and changing the behavior. So the follow-up, we have found that is absolutely imperative. That's why when we're now working with Caritas, who has other projects in those communities, they visit these people constantly and they make sure that they're cooking. And so we also have started a WhatsApp chat. So the condition is that we give them this cooker and we spend the whole day cooking many things with it. And then we ask them to post the picture of what they're cooking. And if it doesn't work, to let us know. And then we follow up. And this is how the community of the users develops, because then they can talk to each other and see what they're doing. And we haven't had any returns, because we told them if you can't use it, just return it. And in fact, now they want two cookers instead of just one. And the other thing that we did, because of this, the barriers, like I said, are the habits and also the lack of understanding and the stopping using it as soon as there's any problem. Now, with the hot pot, for example, we had another trouble, which was that people would think it was too fragile. The glass bowl at the bottom, that was so precious to them. They could never afford to buy a glass bowl like that. And so they would put it as a decorating piece in their house, or they would hide it so that then when the people that came to check whether they were using this or not, that they could show them that they was in perfect condition. And now we tell them, the more you use it, it's going to get more damaged. The more damaged it is, it make us give you a new one. But if your cooker looks like new after a year, then we'll take it back. You won't get anything. So we have to see that you use it, and we want to know your problems, and we really give them a very strong follow-up. And the other thing that we've done is in the church, they have a church where people are fed. And every day in Mexico, like in the US and other countries, gas is getting more and more expensive. So we gave them 5 cookers, and now the food bank gives them the food, and then they can cook it in the solar cookers, and they feed 40 or 50 people every day for free. And then it's exactly like Patrick was saying, it makes people like it and want to have it, and the technology gets widespread, and the word goes out. So we're getting several communities who would like to be part of the project, and we're looking for funds and ways to see how we can partner. But it's donations. The other obstacle, of course, is the cost of the device. People can't buy it by themselves, and we have to have this constant follow-up, like for several years. And then we're trying to develop the users that are the most gifted and excited about it. Then we hire them to go into other communities and also be in charge of promoting. But we're going slowly. 15 years is not enough. In 15 years, we've learned all the lessons, but now is we're really exploding and really being more successful in the distribution of these cookers. But it's the Haynes cooker. It's just so light. It's just an amazing device. And in price, now with the political issues in the US and China, we're trying to see if we can import the materials to Mexico and bypass the US. So maybe that'll be cheaper still, and we can afford to distribute this more widely.
Yeah. Well, now, so for outside forces, my question, I maybe harp too much on the oil companies, but they are a big force. I know from several of the people that have promoted where they're finally getting natural gas into the hands of people. And India in particular, it's India Oil that has promoted solar panels and then getting people induction cookers. So it's a step forward. But at the same time, they don't know I don't know, it's just the joy of solar thermal, of just pure sunlight. And so do you sense there are any outside forces that any, I don't know, or the oil companies or anyone else that gets in your way?
You're asking me? I believe that it's a totally different issue. I don't see this as competition. I really see the world of solar cooking as being different from the technology that costs money and that has a tradition in a middle class. At some point, we thought that to make a solar cooker successful, we needed to make it very desirable to the poorer people so that they wouldn't think we're trying to sell them a product that is for the poor people. And so that we should first sell it to the middle class and upper class people so that they would find it desirable. And we found that that is really not the case. It's really about understanding the technology and taking advantage of it, because the market for the LP is different. It's different. It's like you said, the people who have the money, they have choices. But the people that really need it don't have that many choices. They don't say either LP or solar. They just don't know what to do, and they're scrambling, for a little bit of money just to cook. So I don't see this as a competition.
That's that's interesting because I do hear this from people, but maybe they're just thinking about it too wrong. Or we're always thinking there's some evil force behind why people aren't taking my cooker when it might just be it's something totally different. So that's good to know.
That's my point of view. That's really my point of view. I don't think there's a competition. I think it's a question of follow-up and creating communities of users that share the same motivation for cooking in the sun, and then expanding, preaching to the choir. We just need to develop communities and forget about the LP. I think that there's always going to be people who use, practical things like LP or induction, and that is something that is in the American culture. So it's the same thing. You'll get resistance to solar cooking because there's a habit and there's a tradition of being practical and using the best appliance and induction and so on. But that's not the same market.
Sure. Okay. Well, how about we'll turn it over to Patrick? You've been in the business for quite a while, and you have to have encountered uh, barriers, whether they're cultural or like I say, outside forces. What's your take on all that?
Yeah, I have to agree with Margarita there. I think what we're up against is more of an educational or awareness issue. Um, the people that we're trying to serve, by and large, in this developing world context, trying to get people to shift fuels from burning wood or some other dirty, highly pollutant fuel source into using solar for cooking their staple grains or their beans or corn, whatever. I think too often that's more that the people we're addressing don't recognize or don't understand the benefit of this fuel-free form, and they and and so without the desire inside them, which is simply kind of a lack of awareness, um, then we have a real that we're going to have a real uphill battle, real difficult time. Is if we can create a market where people want these solutions. Certainly the technology is not the problem. Um, yeah, and there's always going to be another alternative. There's always going to be a way to do it easier, quicker. Oftentimes it's a little more expensive, when you work up the energy ladder or the status of living ladder.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but where we're working kind of the bottom of the pyramid here, I think we have a technology that works. I think it's cost effective. I think it does a fair enough job. The problem is essentially, people aren't willing to change. There's not enough of an impetus. They don't want to adjust a recipe to cook a little longer or a little differently. Their neighbors aren't encouraging them. Some community leader isn't telling them about all the different benefits. And it's not until you get that momentum going that people realize, okay, wow, this is much better. And they may still end up acquiring a gas stove as they climb the ladder. But the point of that they'll be interested in using a solar device to cover much of their caloric needs for cooking. That is still, to me, I haven't found that community or found that culture, if you will. I'm gonna use a big word where, they talk about cultural adoption all the time and in the Global Alliance for Clean Cooking or the Clean Cooking Alliance. Um, and that is the painful message that I have learned over and over is that if the culture, isn't interested, if there's not a market-based demand for the solution, then it's going to really struggle to get off the ground. And oftentimes that is an economic reality, but more than that, it's typically just the change from this style of cooking to that other one, or something like Margarita mentioned, where a social behavior is centered in every evening around the hearth, or social behavior is centered around going out and gathering firewood. That's your chance to be with your people, and these are patterns that are long formatted into the culture, and you can't just boot those and uproot those and change them quickly. Um, it reminds me like where I've heard about some really interesting cultural adoption exercises that have taken story format and like radio and sort of allowed the listeners to love a series of characters and their decision making process, and then all of a sudden that character makes a decision to say start solar cooking, and then you've loved this character, you understand that their story is much like yours, they're trying something new, that you respect that they took that leap of faith, that turns out that they really love it, and now you've decided, since your hero on that story loves cooking on the sun, it's time for me to do it. These are things that take time, and they really, it's very much of a social impact experiment.
Yeah, we need
um,
to get into Disney and get them to do a film, Pixar or something with a solar cooker. That is absolutely going to make it.
And
But
and those are the kind of budgetary realities that oftentimes oil and gas companies they do have those types of long-winded budgets that can
yeah,
build cultural movements.
yes.
And the solar cooking industry just has never really had any kind of budget, so people don't really often take you seriously. I mean, it turns out that if you want to change things and supplant your message through media formats, you often are going to need some capital to do so, and
Hmm.
I think that's a big challenge of ours.
Hmm. Yeah.
Books that reference solar cooking as possible. And
Mhm.
one is actually I think it's 1954, the first worldwide conference on solar energy. And one of the statements from one of the keynote speakers was, "We know we can cook with sunlight. Why aren't we?" This is 1955. This is 70 years ago, right? Or
Yeah.
whenever. And
Wow.
so that is the eternal question: is we know it works. What does it take to convince people?
Yeah, talking about that kind of exposure, the cooker Jose Andres, Jose Andres of
Mhm.
the what he's got this huge organization, and he is a promoter of solar cooker. We
Yeah.
need to address him and to ask him to do more, or to just kind of think through it, because he every day he has a bigger name. And
That's
I went once to a conference with some of the people at She, and he was giving the speech, and he was really promoting solar cooking. He thought we could do like a pressure cooker with solar cooking. you know it was interesting idea
yeah.
if
I,
that worked, but anyway.
yeah. I picked up a small pressure cooker that I put in my Simplicity, and it works fine. Yeah. I mean, there's no question it can. Yeah.
Wow, but
Yeah.
that's another character that would be good if he
Yeah.
continued on his.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, those are the kinds of star powers that you need to kind of
Mhm.
validate, almost like that's the word, is like to validate the movement, like
Yeah.
we all there's very few um real leaders, and we all tend to gravitate behind them and then want what they are doing, and so Jose Andres is absolutely one of them. And if he could demonstrate the power of this stuff on a regular basis, I mean, what he's doing with World Central Kitchen is
Yes,
mind
yes,
blowing.
yes.
Yeah.
I'm
And
a fan. Yeah.
oh, big time. Uh, I've been in his circle a few times, but and gotten his ear a couple of times. I mean, in fact, at one point I pitched to him. I said, Jose, we were in Las Vegas working on a festival, and I said, let's build a cafe here, a solar cafe. I've got a technology I think could really make a reliable cafe setup. What do you think? And so I know he's probably thought about it a little bit. Um, Unfortunately, most of what he does is very, very high end, 4-star, 5-star restaurants. Uh, so to build a little 2-star hot dog stand would probably hurt his brand a little bit. but but I've actually joined him a little bit down on some of his disaster relief programs as well. And that's another it's kind of like one of the things GoSun looked at was that we want to get into developing countries and do work, where we're needed the most, kind of, the poor. But in order to get there, we need to value engineer our technology and make it super duper low cost and super rugged and kind of readily available to any type of user. So why don't we try to build relationships in the disaster relief arena where we can achieve scale with shipping 10,000 units to some post hurricane or somewhere where they're not going to have a grid for months. And again, that's been slow and difficult, and that industry is very mysterious, very challenging. By and large, we've learned that our technology is a little too expensive, long lasting, for most disaster relief situations where it's just a couple of days, couple of weeks that people need food or water or what have you. So it's I still can't quite find that opening or that beachhead where what could be this massive multi-billion-dollar industry could proliferate and grow. I like to consider the fact that the solar cooking industry is probably one of the smallest industries you can find. That's not something that makes me happy or proud, but it is, for whatever reason, I think Luther, you said it. I mean, it's known technology has been around for 70 years, probably more. And, it really hasn't taken off. Um, I'm not afraid of putting my neck out there and pushing it further and further. I know it's amazing. It's helped my life. It's something that makes me, I feel more capable and stronger by using this technology.
Yes.
Um, and there's a lot of things I do in my life that I might do, and others would laugh at me. Like I don't really care that much about the status quo. I'm not trying to win them over, or I don't care if I look geeky or wimpy or weenie or but I think people miss the fact that it really actually makes their lives better, and it's so hard to get someone into um, just to move a little bit towards a slight inconvenience or to change a behavior that's ingrained, even just once. It's so difficult for them to do it, especially on their own. So we need community, and that's why I really applaud what Luther is doing. I mean, it just feels so good to be chatting with folks that have been enthused and use these things
You
and
really
make meals every day.
did. This is our discovery after 15 years. Nothing happens if you don't have a community, and forming the community is the challenge. But now with the technology, with WhatsApp, you can have a technology, we're doing it in Mexico. That's what we're doing. And I was going to ask Patrick, have you spoken with Roger Haynes? Because, he's got all kinds of huge ideas for that, and he's got a device that is inexpensive and extremely powerful. And we really are running with it. We're running with it. And now that
I'm so happy.
now that we know that we need a a team that is going to follow up the users, then that to me is the key. That is the key, that you have to be with the people that are using it and solving their problems and celebrating their successes. And, now we're doing medicines, herbal medicines in the solar cooker. There's no other way to melt the beeswax except in the solar cooker with, then you add the oil and the almond oil and all the herbs and everything. They're doing amazing things, and then they can sell these things in the market. They do need seed money for their little enterprise, but the thing is the support, the teamwork. It's really like a religion of sorts. Yeah.
How cool. I'm so happy to hear that that's working with the Haynes. I definitely have met Roger a few times and been very impressed with his solidity. He's just such an even-keeled guy. I'm
Yeah.
so happy to hear.
And
I
so
understand that. I think his technology's probably one of the most proliferant in Africa as well.
yeah,
He just has stuck with it, solved problems, and he has a really concerted effort to get this where it's needed. And he knows the importance of people like yourself taking it and running with it and
yeah,
finding that cultural niche
yeah.
where it's really got true utility. And it sounds like people really want it and use it down there.
Moses, I think you wanted to say something.
Yeah, exactly. So I wanted to ask you, Margareta and Patrick, about the aspect of stakeholder engagement. So in terms of promoting the technology, do you just deal primarily with the communities, or you try to bring in government officials in order to have this
That's a
on the
very good question.
overall energy policies?
Well, I'll let you know. I'll tell you something that because we have understood that we have to do this community by community, because see, Patrick is saying, just send 10,000 of these things into the disaster zone. We have seen that it doesn't really work because they don't know how to use it well, and they won't appreciate it, and you have to follow up the almost like the small community. And we actually have access to government, and we could have done some of that, but we refused because we thought that we would be then we'd go a step behind, because then they would say, oh, see, people just use it one time or twice, like what you were saying, Luther, that they use it 4 times and then they don't use it anymore. And we thought then we would be like losing out. And so what we're doing is growing one step by step. And then now that we have this team with this food bank and Caritas, we feel that that is the winning procedure, because they're there and they follow up, and then with the chat they have to give us feedback, and then we give them feedback. And we decided we have to do like 2 workshops a year, which is like a party, like a celebration. And we cook cakes and all kinds of wonderful things. And then people are just delighted. And the people from the outside come and they want to join. And then that's how we can grow. But we've proven that if you just give them the cooker or you go to the government, they don't use it well. You know?
That's really interesting, because I was like looking at the aspect of the government being the force behind promoting it in terms of its visibility.
It could if
But
we had that kind of government. But government would use our device as a way of promoting themselves, and I don't think they would let us do our follow up the way we wanted. And maybe we don't have enough ambassadors and people who would be doing these trainings at scale. We're not there yet.
And that's a great question, Moses. I often think about how like government, and again, this is just my experience, but so often, real government leadership hard to find. And it's really the people that come up with stuff, that innovate, that lead, that disrupt, that industry comes in, and then then government follows them and says, hey, now that you guys are making $1 billion, we need to regulate, and we need to figure out how to make this nicer and safer, and so I wouldn't, in this movement, in this case,
This
I
time,
don't think that policy or government is really like that needed. I'd say the one case where that's a little different, is if you are importing materials or components or even entire solar ovens, it would be really helpful if things could get imported in a way that was duty free.
yeah.
That's been a conversation in a number of governments, and it seems
Mhm.
like Kenya might be moving the needle there. We've had a lot of real major difficulties getting things imported. But I think we're such pennies, we're such a tiny industry that I don't think we'll get government to really give us any attention nor leadership. I think it's up to us and up to the people to build the demand, get the thing moving, and then you go and you start writing policy and working on standardization and regulatory aspects. Um, and another part that I think the solar movement could benefit from, but we're not quite there yet, is the whole like microfinancing,
Mhm.
where you need some kind of a financial loan in order to purchase some $50 apparatus that is going to take a year or something to pay off. Um, I just feel like we can't put the cart before the horse. We have to figure. I'm like a broken record here. We have to get this market demand for a solution that we all know is completely legitimate, but by and large, the people that we think Target would buy them don't know yet, and it's efforts like Margarita's doing. Maybe on a very, very small and local level, a teacher or someone who's kind of pseudo government oriented of authority could support by their endorsement, could support by giving good face to what we're doing, but I don't think they're going to necessarily lead it.
I also wanted to talk about preparedness and what people need and the visibility of solar cookers, where they can be most visible. I think disaster areas, they get the press, they get the cameras, they get the publications on them. And there's got to be a way. I don't think we can say it can't be done. We get a lot of cookers into refugee camps, but no one hears about that. Kakuma, I was absolutely flabbergasted to read when I looked it up. It's been around for 40 years, I think.
Mhm.
A refugee camp that's basically its own city. People have been born there, and they're working. Talk about hot dog stands, Patrick. They've got whatever they cook there. They're cooking them there. Sometimes with solar, sometimes with the wood that they still truck in spite of the opportunities for solar. But no one knows they're there. They're kind of a success story in that they're the easiest place to get solar cookers in, and people actually do use them because it is better than leaving the camp and putting themselves at risk, in war
Abs-
zones and so forth. But I just wonder if, and this is where Andres, if we could get we could get him to be a little more visible. He's got a challenge though, because of course he drops into a disaster zone and all of a sudden they got to feed 5,000 people, right? So
Hey,
it's easy to just
No, I just want to say that in terms of the visibility that comes from the distribution of the technologies in the disaster areas, I don't know if what I'm thinking is correct, but don't that really generate this wrong perception that, oh, this is just a technology for refugees or people in conflict and
yeah, yeah. Some
like,
people they might
that's
feel that way, but it is a way of also distributing the technology. I don't know.
yeah.
That's a great point too, Moses. I mean, if we're trying to make a market-based demand and you want people to want the technology, I mean, and it's only used by the desperate poor, that's a really difficult thing to have in demand. That's
Mhm.
a very valid point. but more solar is more solar and it's better, uh, so I think it's a great place to start. And it is an interesting study, Luther, to your point. Like, if people have spent tons of time and money putting solar ovens in Kakuma, okay, so are they using them today? What's that look like? How many meals are made, and how are those families maybe slightly different than the families that are still burning with wood? um, what a huge opportunity. That's the kind of spot where I think as an industry, we need to find a place like that to target and to do our very best effort of sprinkling our tech with all of our resources in one place where you can get that movement to take off and then proliferate from there. Heck, they're manufacturing them in the Kakuma and heading up other neighboring communities, because everybody's so convicted that this has lifted their their opportunities and spirits.
Mhm.
Complicated stuff, but I think that's a really valid point, Moses. Yeah, we don't want to shoot ourselves in the foot that prevents you from being able to run in the future. And GoSun kind of took an approach where we said, look, we want to make sure we're making like the most amazing technology, and we'll start at the top of the pyramid, with developed countries and charge $400 for an oven. And then eventually we'll get to the bottom, where we can charge $40 once we're at scale. Um, it's a hell of a lot harder to do than it is to say.
So here is another challenge in developing countries like in most part of Africa. People can have electric cookers, but the electricity system is not stable. So I think of it in this aspect. You promote the solar cookers for everybody so that people will have different options of cooking. So when you have a single target group like the poorest of the poor, and for me, it might slow a little bit the diffusion of the technology across different levels of society. But when we say, okay, here is a technology, it's good for cooking, you just need the sun. And we go on school campaigns where people as young as 10 years old, 15 years old, see this technology, appreciate it at a younger age, and then tell their parents about it, and then you spread the message across.
Absolutely. I think you're so right. Here in Oaxaca, my friend who is the spearhead of our project, she goes to schools and she does cooking in the recess time. And she, in fact, has created a small cooker where the kids can heat up their pizza or make a little cake, a little piece of a cake. And it really works well. Or hard boil an egg, for example. And the schools are such a wonderful target. We just need money to then promote all that effort. In the basic, in the end, it's all about money. But the idea of the schools is definitely a wonderful one.
In fact, Deepak from India is really promoting this community cooking, like
Yes.
large groups of people have
Yes.
their meals cooked by themselves. I was really surprised to see that at Console Food
Yeah.
because I was not thinking about it on that aspect.
Uh-huh.
So it means the technology is really mature. It comes in different forms, different designs. So the message just needs to be sent across to different people so that each can select the one that suits their need best.
Absolutely. That's why I'm so excited about Museum of Solar Cooker. When I heard that you were going to give this, this call and this meeting, I was so excited. I said, we're really getting ahead. We're going to have a Museum of Solar Cooking, and that can also be a source of publicity and diffusion of the idea of solar cooking and the interest. It's amazing. It's wonderful. I really applaud you for that.
So thank you so much. And to give you an example of the different kinds of promotion, Tucson, Arizona, which is one of the sunniest places in the world. I kid them that they get 2 clouds a year. They have a limit. They can have no more than 2 clouds in a year. And for years, they had a solar potluck where they just invited anyone in the city to come to the state park just outside of the city, and they'd have hundreds of people tasting solar cooked food, seeing all these unique designs. That's one way to do it. For a couple of years, I had my backyard just solar potlucks, and there's no limit to the types of promotion. But great discussion. Anything else from these three questions? I mean, clearly, all of you have been getting people motivated that you've been interacting with to promote, and in ways that are practical, in ways that keep them cooking. So, but is there anything else you'd like to add or think about, or a future topic for the forum? Oh, you're muted, Moses.
So I would just like to say that solar cooking have been going on for a long time now, and we have different set of technologies which you can use. Different organizations already exist. So we just need to keep pushing the message across so that more and more people will adopt to cook with the sun.
Yes, absolutely. I applaud you. I support you. I will do whatever I can, and I will tell my group about this meeting. And it's wonderful that you're doing this. It's a great contribution.
Great. I hope so.
Yeah.
I tell people I'm having too much fun to know if I'm doing any good.
You are doing a lot of good. You're doing a lot of good. And for
That's
the
absolutely right.
forum, I'll bring all a lot of the people that I work with will not speak English, and so then that's the problem. But maybe they can have a little translator on their phone next to them or something.
Sure. Well, the one thing I should note, and I kick myself, I need to put it in my notes, is Zoom, you can turn on captions and then you can say translate to my language. And
Oh,
the but what I did with Zoom the first time I set it up was, well, let's turn on the captions and then have it translate to Spanish. So it's Spanish at the bottom. And it's actually not too bad. I mean, my Spanish is good enough. I can tell if it's really bad. It was actually pretty good. Um, so we're trying to make it as accessible as possible. And Zoom, I've got to say, I mean, I was a little skeptical when, like with my job, we had to do meetings with, was it Microsoft Teams? And for teaching at Metro State with COVID, we had to go entirely on Zoom. But we got through it, and actually, I really appreciated how they've developed the tool. So anyway.
yeah, I agree. It's good.
Yeah, this is so helpful, Luther, to connect with people all over the world doing this stuff. It just is totally rejuvenating to my heart and passion, and really nice to meet Moses and Margarita tonight. And just keep doing what you're doing. I think I mentioned this on the last call that I joined was 2 months ago or so, and I mentioned a little bit tonight. Is there a particular region where where we can focus to develop success? What is the strongest likelihood for success already for the solar cooking movement? And can we get more of the companies and other stakeholders involved to really focus on that spot and really pour resources into it? And maybe it's in Margarita's hands, or I don't know if it's in Kakuma, and we need obviously really great hands on the ground that can really take it and run with it. But I would love to see that emerge. I haven't seen that necessarily from the Solar Cookers International, and it feels like again we're kind of all spread a little too thin. We need to kind of find that beachhead and really go for the long haul to really
It's
build
music
that
to my
culture more.
ears. What you're saying is music to my ears, because all the time that we've been developing our project and lessons learned and really doing all kinds of different things and using different devices, we really feel that now we have the winner team. And I'm just really so excited about it, because having the support of these other organizations that follow up the movement I would love to see more resources poured into our project. I really do. I'm so happy about 15 years that we've been trying, and I think we got it. We got it.
All
But
right.
Yay.
we got it. We have the right device, we have the right communities, and we have the right team. So I would just really want to promote what we're doing because it works. It really works. And I love the WhatsApp thing. The kids love the cakes that we make and their mothers make, and then they sell them in the market. And, I mean, it's really proliferating. We just need it to really scale up.
That's the
Awesome.
next way for promoting the forums too, because I've been so reliant on email, city employee for 30 years, and you just use email because that's how you do it. But I've learned in the last 2 years, just about everyone in the Eastern Hemisphere uses WhatsApp.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And we
So
have right here in Mexico. Yeah.
yeah. So
I'm sure.
I have to figure out a way to be able to send a message from my email to a WhatsApp number. I don't know, so that I can do one click once without having to click through 50 WhatsApp numbers. There'll be a way. I know. Well, we'll set up a group or something. I know that can be done.
Or several groups, you don't have to just have one group
Yeah,
because it's true. At the end, it may be too big. I don't know how that would work. But 20 people, because they're not all going to be connecting every day. So, a few people and then connecting in real time, I think that really works well.
sure. Okay. Well, I see we're about an hour and a half in. Any last comments, insights, thoughts for future topics?
You have enough 10 modules, promotion number 1. And yeah, we have so much information already, but
Yeah,
we're on.
great.
We are
Great.
on. Thank you, Luther. Way to turn us on and get us all
Yeah.
working together.
Yes.
Great.
And thank you, Moses. You bring a special addition to us, to the
Yes.
group.
Thank you. Thank you.
Definitely.
Yeah.
All right, great to meet you guys again. Catch
Yes.
you next time.
Great.
Bye.
And
Thank you.
I'll send a note. It'll probably be tomorrow. I'll be able to put this on top of the other recording and send you the link, and then you can
Thank
catch
you.
up the last 2 meetings.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right.
Very
Awesome. Bye-bye.
awesome.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Good night, everybody. Bye-bye.
Yep. Good night.